Hi guys and gals and kittens, and welcome to the AI Neuro Magic Show. In this video I'm going to show you the differences related to UX, user experience, and UI. Here I am at drift.com. I'm going to try to ignore their website, even though it's difficult for me. And then I'm going to copy this URL, and then I'm going to open it again to show you the experience you get when you initially come to their page. So they have an AI chatbot, right? It's found here. First of all, it obstructs the page. There might be valid reasons for doing this, because after all, you do want to drive users into your AI chatbot if you have one. However, it completely obscures the page and becomes very confusing for me. Let's ignore that part and close this guy, and then open their AI chatbot. I'm going to exclusively measure, you might say, their UI and UX. I'm going to ignore the technology of the chatbot, even though the chatbot is embedded as an iframe. Now, first things first, you see this margin here, right? Let me show you a Gutenberg Bible. If I do an image search for a Gutenberg Bible, notice the margins here, right? So we've known for 1,000 years that you need to add margins around texts. Why? Because otherwise it becomes difficult to focus on the text you want to read. So this thing here actually makes it more difficult to read a text. Let me say hi to it, just to get a message back. They have a decent chatbot. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not like terrible. Of course, compared to ours, they don't display images, and they are using iframes and all of that stuff. But I'm not going to even talk about that. I'm going to talk about their UI and their UX. Now, if you look at our AI chatbot, right? And for the record, we do have an AI chatbot without the transparent background. We do have another theme, right? However, if you have a really clean page, you can actually use the bubbles theme, right? This is called the bubbles theme, right? You see how the way we are using margins here, right? It's much larger margins compared to Drift. Now, because of that, these have different, the bubbles here have different background color than the background color of the AI chatbot itself. This makes it difficult to focus on messages and actually read them from a UX perspective. In addition, they're using font size 14, right? We're using font size 18. And that is a big deal, especially on phones, right? And let me show you how the AI chatbot looks like if you are on a phone. In fact, this is how it's going to look like. All right, so first of all, we remove the justifying of the text. Second of all, we remove the margins of the right margin and the left margin of the machine response and the user's question, because we need to use the width of the screen to the maximum extent. And if you count the characters here per line, the character count is roughly at 70 to 75. If you count the character count here per line, it will be at 25. Why is that a big deal? Because research that is peer-reviewed related to UI and UX explicitly proves that the absolutely best amount of characters per line when you are representing text is between 50 and 75. Drift has 25. So they are producing too many lines per kilobyte of text, according to neutral science and research. We know about this. Right. Then let me scroll. You see, now I'm scrolling, and then I'm going to scroll back down again. Notice what happens when I come to the bottom. I start scrolling the page, right? I'm still having focus within the chatbot, right? But I'm scrolling the page. This is terrible UX, because if I want to scroll the chatbot conversation, then the fact of that the page is actually scrolling behind as the chatbot stops scrolling creates what's commonly referred to as cognitive noise in my brain and making it more difficult to relate to the AI chatbot and focus on it. In addition, they do not have a backdrop. If you look at ours, we have a backdrop here, right? If I scroll the page and I go down here and blah, 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 and okay, cool, I want to trigger the chatbot, boom, backdrop. I remove the AI chatbot, boom, backdrop gone. And when the AI chatbot is active and I'm scrolling it, we actually stop page scrolling. Why? Because once the user is inside of the chatbot, we want to remove absolute all cognitive noise that exists on the page as good as we can. And yet again, I want to emphasize this is one of 3 different themes. We have 2 other themes that actually has an opaque background here. It's just that our site happens to be so clean that we can, to some extent, get away with using the bubbles theme that has a transparent background to produce these like cloud-like bubbles of communication, right? Then, of course, how can an AI chatbot benefit my business? What kind of integrations do I Nero chatbot support, etc.? We are providing conversation follow-up questions by default out of the box. They only work with GPT-4, unfortunately. And I suspect Drift is using GPT 3.5 for the record. And here you can see another one of our user experience USPs, which is that our AI chatbot actually displays images, right? Images significantly increases conversion in comparison to not having images, especially on an e-commerce website created on top of, for instance, Shopify. So we make a really big deal out of that. We can actually display images. This week, can you show me an image? I actually don't know if they support images, but my guess is they don't. So it's probably going to come back with, I apologize, but as a text box, I'm unable to display or share images, right? So 1 image doubles conversion in an e-commerce setting, 2 images quadruples it, 3 images actually further doubles it. So in theory, when you have 4 images, you're converting 16 times as much. That's probably not entirely true. But images significantly increases conversion, and there is science related to this. That's why Amazon is so focused on zooming images and stuff like that. And while we don't have zooming of images, we do have the full screen thing, right? Which allows you to kind of, to some extent, zoom the image, you might say, right? So, and then you see the conversation starters. Remember, I asked what kind of integrations. Okay, so now I want to know stuff about integrations. How can I set up a Nero chatbot to work with my Shopify store? Can the chatbot be customized to match my company's branding? What are the steps to integrate the chatbot with my CRM system? Try this one, conversation follow-up question. Right, if I'm on a phone, this is a really big deal because it's difficult to write on a phone, right? So the statistical probability of that this exact question would be a follow-up question that I actually has is actually quite significant. And here it provides me a detailed explanation, and it does render markdown. You see here we have bold parts, we have bulleted lists, we have numbered lists. We can also display bulleted lists, and we have hyperlinks inline in the conversation itself. So why do I create this video? Well, because everybody expects an AI chatbot to look like this, unfortunately. And the reasons why they do is because this is every single AI chatbot you've ever seen in your whole life, right? I mean, 99% of every single AI chatbot vendor on the planet is producing stuff like this, right? That doesn't mean it's right. When the iPhone came out, every single smartphone vendor was producing smartphones with keyboards and styluses, right? And then came Steve Jobs and he said, you know what, everybody's wrong. People don't know what they want before they see it. And guess what? Steve Jobs was right. Now, I'm willing to bet the company on that I'm right and that these guys are wrong. Literally, I'm not kidding you. Now, if you want us to deliver an AI chatbot like this, we can do that. It's just a theme override. We can easily create a theme override for you, of course. But we don't want it then to have the watermark up here. because we don't want to publicly admit that we created it. This is how I personally feel that an AI chatbot should look like. And we have 1,000 years of science proving that I am right and these guys are wrong. Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a nice day.